Today, in the media conference with Lal Goyal, which is brought to you by V4 News, Karu News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan and Organ Donation India Foundation. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic, and today's topic is not only current, very relevant, very hot, and the topic is, will Sri Lanka crisis affect India? Sri Lanka, formerly known as Ceylon, and officially the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, is an island country in South Asia. It lies in the Indian Ocean, southwest of the Bay of Bengal, and southeast of the Arabian Sea. It is separated from the Indian subcontinent by the Gulf of Mannar and the Palk Strait. The Sri Lankan economic crisis is an ongoing crisis in the island state of Sri Lanka that started in 2019. It is the country's worst economic crisis since its independence in 1948. It has led to unprecedented levels of inflation, near depletion of foreign exchange reserves, shortages of medical supplies, and an increase in prices of basic commodities. The crisis is said to have begun due to multiple compounding factors like money creation, a nationwide policy to shift to organic or biological farming, the Easter bombing in 2019, and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The subsequent economic hardship resulted in the 2022 Sri Lankan protests. With the announcement of resignation by Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the continuing political crisis has intensified further in the island nation. The situation in the country has taken a new turn. India must do whatever it can for a smooth transition of power in Colombo and a speedy redressal of the main cause of the Sri Lankan crisis. If the current situation in the island nation persists, it could cause a major disruption to the normal functioning of the Colombo port. This would be detrimental to the India's interest. The port handles over 30% of India's container traffic and 60% of its transshipment. India has had a substantial investment in Sri Lanka in the areas including real estate, manufacturing, and petroleum refining. They all might be adversely affected if the crisis continued. Also, the continuing Sri Lankan crisis could compel many Sri Lankans to leave for India for their survival. Already, scores of them have fled from the island nation to India. More importantly, the main threat the crisis possesses to India comes from the rising influence of Communist China in the island nation. China today is Sri Lanka's top single lender and biggest source of foreign direct investment. Chinese investment in Sri Lanka have failed to generate adequate employment or revenue. This has compelled the Sri Lankan government to default and surrender its strategically located townships and ports such as Hambantota to China. In the case of the port city of Colombo project, Beijing received over 100 hectares in exchange for $1.4 billion investment. If the economic crisis worsened in Sri Lanka, the country could lose control of its land in other port cities as well. And to discuss this very, very important, very sensitive, very hot topic, that is, will Sri Lanka crisis affect India? We have a very elite, knowledgeable panelist who have full knowledge about this, what is happening in Sri Lanka. So I would like to invite my first panelist guest, and he is Mr. Ramnath Pradeep. Mr. Ramnath Pradeep is LLB PG Economics. He is the former chairman and managing director, Corporation Bank. Mr. Ramnath Pradeep has served the banking industry for more than 37 years in various senior positions. His chairmanship in Corporation Bank had brought numerous awards to the bank. He put the bank on world map by taking keen initiative to partner with Commonwealth Secretariat for financing the youth as a social concern under Corporation Bank ComSec Youth Enterprise Financing Program. He has also served as Executive Director of Central Bank of India and was also appointed as Chief Business Officer in State Bank of India and Bank of India. In addition, he had also been associated as Chairman of Corporation Bank Limited, Corp Bank Securities Limited, Sand Bank Home Limited, Sand Bank Securities Limited, and member of Board of Central Bank of India and ILFS, besides other companies in the area of finance, information technology, retail chain, credit rating, advisory services, etc. Currently, he is the chairman of Messrs. Cras Capital Advisors, Messrs. Credit Rating and Risk Advisory Services Private Limited. He is also the co-author of book Financial Inclusion, Viable Opportunity in Urban India. Welcome, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep on our show. Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, as you know that you being the, you are in the financial economic sector for so long, associated with the bank, very reputed bank. And you have seen all types of things with, and especially the foreign policies and the impact of any crisis in any of the countries in India. We would like to know your views on will Sri Lanka crisis affect India? Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, please unmute. Mr. Pradeep, please unmute.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Goel. I am very happy to be with you this morning with my other panelists. And it's a very important subject is being discussed today. Is Sri Lanka crisis can impact the Indian geopolitical issues, social issues, and also economic issues. According to me, and if you see, you already explained how the Sri Lanka is placed nearer to India's territory, though it is not a part of the territory, but somehow or other it is very well connected with Indian culturally, socially, and also politically. This has been one of the area where we could have taken a lead, in fact, to support the Sri Lankan government. Unfortunately, because of the political reason, geopolitical reason, China came into picture and has set up one of the leading port in Sri Lanka, resulting into delay in repayment of the loan for that purposes, and resulting into today the Chinese have taken the position in Sri Lanka, which will impact the India's sovereignty as well, because we have been seen for the last 3 to 4 years. There is already a conflict going on with the China in the Ladakh area, the northeast area, and if this is not taken care, this area is not taken care, probably there is a further possibility there could be a conflict through the sea route, which is not advisable for in the interest of India. So the crisis in Sri Lanka certainly going to impact India in terms of the political issue, in terms of social issues, in terms of economic issues. Now, let us discuss one by one each, how it is going to impact politically. Now, the Sri Lanka's population and the language and the religion, many of the things are similar to our southern east part of the country, means Tamil Nadu, some part of the Kerala, some part of the southern state can get impacted. Now, majority of the people, they look for these countries, these states to support in terms of their trade, in terms of their well-being, in terms of a lot of support comes from these states to Sri Lanka, and a lot of people of Indian origin are also settled in Sri Lanka, enjoying a lot of position in Sri Lankan economy as well as in their other areas. So it is going to be very important from the Indian point of view, politically as well as socially, because we are very much connected with this socially in terms of the religion, in terms of many other things. So it is going to impact if we don't intervene. Economically, yes, there is a huge potential for the Indian government to have an export to the Sri Lanka in terms of various requirement of their. As of today, once upon time, India was having the leading export house, the exporter. We were the leading exporter for Sri Lanka. As of today, the China has taken over. Majority of the cases which are, the India was having, now China has taken over. So it is from that angle also, it is not in the interest of, in the interest of India not to allow interference at this stage to stabilize the government and see that what are the necessary support in terms of the financial crisis, because it is not a too big a state or too big a country where the India cannot support. The Sri Lanka is equivalent to maybe around UP state, something like that, in terms of the geography, and in terms of the population, 22 million population is nothing. So I am of the firm view that in case the effective steps is not taken in terms of supporting, irrespective of what government comes there in the Sri Lanka, it is in the India's interest to support politically. It is in the India's interest to support socially as well as financially, to see that there is being a neighbor country, there is established in the political arena, so that the disturbance is not there and linkages is well established, so that the trade and services are exchanged properly. So as of today, if it is delayed, because some of the action appears to be being delayed, if some of the action are being delayed, probably it may not be in the interest of the India to watch and see the situation. This is not a situation. There is a need to financially at least support, so that the country's population get benefited through the supplies being made. Although there is a supply is being made, very essential supply is being made, but I'm saying a strategic view is required to be taken. What are the need of population of that country, so that India get also support, and there is a market available. Neighbor market is one of the reasons. Secondly, majority of the export to the Southeast countries are going through that particular port where China has developed the port. And as of today, the report suggests that majority of the export which are going through now is stuck up at that particular, the Sri Lanka export. And containers are also stuck up in Kerala port in India side. So this is basically a very important steps which needs to be taken by the Indian government to see that there is a stability in that Sri Lanka. Trade and finance is also taken care. And India is, as of today, looking to India position, India is capable of doing so. So it will be a geopolitical decision will have to be taken by the Indian government, and it should be taken rightly to support the present crisis. Whatever the government comes as of today, India has been a good neighbor for the Sri Lanka, except in few years where there has been a conflict. So I find that in case the crisis continue to be there, I am sure China will take over, and China will create a problem for even India through the Sri Lanka based. So it is in the interest of India to intervene at appropriate level. I don't know what level it can be intervened, but financially, yes. Financially, today, India is stronger than anybody. And to beat the China, it is better to intervene at earliest before China comes into picture. Otherwise, once the China comes into picture, there will be again a conflict. And as other conflicts are going on, as of today, the problem is in the Sri Lanka that Sri Lankans are becoming a foreigner in their own country, because the China has already taken over. And for that, I am told, I don't know how far it is correct, but I am told that if you want to go to that particular port, which is an occupation of China, you require a passport and you require a visa. If this type of situation comes, it becomes another country which is, and China naturally will not allow this type of thing to happen. So there is a conflict. There is going to be no conflict on this side also, northeast side also, and south side also. So the India has to face all these problems. So according to me, it is better to intervene at this stage. Politically, if it is necessary, financially should be supported, and the trade and services, the trade transactions should be established so that the people of the Sri Lanka should not suffer. On a humanitarian ground also, whatever is required to be done, I think India is capable of supporting such a country and it will go a very long way to establish the better relationship with the Sri Lankan government, whichever government comes. I think this is the first my reaction to what the question has been posed. So according to me, India should, if not taken care, India will get impacted politically, socially, and financially both.
Okay. Thank you very much.
In process, we will again. You have
Yes.
seen, you are the one person who has visited Sri Lanka in the recent past.
Yeah. Yes. We will come to
many of the people. So,
yes, we will come to that point also.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, for giving your initial remarks. And what Mr. Pradeep has mentioned is that India's impact will be the Sri Lanka's crisis will impact India politically, socially, and economically. And he also mentioned one more very important thing is that because of the location, demographically, the Sri Lankan location is such that in case if the China will come there, then even our security will be affected or impacted by this crisis. And he says that politically, because India is having lots of connections, because it's very close to state of like Tamil Nadu and Kerala, as well as he says that socially, every things, cultural, everything is almost similar. Economically, he says that India is exporting so many things, and they have a vast scope to export the things to the Sri Lanka. But in case if the India will delay its support to the Sri Lanka, then the China can take over, and then it will be very much adversely impacted on our India. So, according to Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, India is in position that we should support the situation, the present situation. We must observe and see whichever the government is going to take place soon. Immediately, the Indian government should extend the hand of support to the Sri Lankan government, so the conditions cannot be adversely impact the country, our country, that is India. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep. Definitely, when I will come in the next, I will be asking some question to you. Now, I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Professor Dr. R.K. Arya. Professor Dr. R.K. Arya is the Professor of International Economics at Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, Faridabad. He is triple postgraduate in statistics, econometrics, finance. He is also double PhD in finance and economics from Delhi University. He worked in applied economics and social welfare, Government of India. He contributed hundreds of articles in leading economic newspapers. He is guiding PhD scholars on various applied topics. He possesses thorough knowledge of social welfare development, public policies, education, and employment. He attended many conferences, workshops, and presented papers. Presently, he is teaching MBA students. He has good understanding of international economics. He is having practical experience in education planning in Planning Commission. Welcome, Professor Dr. R.K. Arya on our show. Professor Dr. R.K. Arya, you have heard what Mr. Ramnath Pradeep has mentioned. Now, you being having good understanding of international economics, and they are, because if the Sri Lankan crisis, which is increasing day by day, what will be the condition of the economics, the economic field in India, whether it is going to be affected or not? What will be the other things that Mr. Ramnath Pradeep mentioned about the political, social, security, as well as economic? Everything will be affected if government of India will not immediately do something to resolve the problems and help the government. So now we would like to know from you your views on today's conference, that is, will Sri Lanka crisis affect India? Professor Dr. R. K. Arya, please.
Good morning, Goel Saab and the co-panelist here on the show. I am thankful to you for having me on the show. But the topic which you are discussing today is of vital concern for the developing country, particularly in the South Asia, where we are living. India, in fact, has got a neighborhood first policy. Neighbor first policy is there, that helping Sri Lanka in crisis is the moral responsibility of India. Of course, it has helped in the past when the earthquake were there in Nepal. It has given aids, but the aids could not be given beyond a limit. Cut your coat according to your cloth. It is there. India is still a very, very small, tiny economy in front of China, and therefore we cannot compare straight away with China. Absolutely, it is a novice kind of idea that we should not compete with China at all. This is the first mistake we generally make. The second thing is that this crisis, particularly the crisis in Sri Lanka, has come to the fore because the Chinese, that is Sri Lankan economy, had got dual deficit. One is called budget deficit and another is called current account deficit. The internal expenditure is much more than the income. Therefore, the current deficit is there, due to which the inflation is straight away. You can see anytime after particularly 2019. And then this country is dependent because it is not integrated to the world economy. Sri Lanka is not a globalized economy. So therefore, the development in fact has not been done systematically, and it has invited China to undertake certain developmental projects like Hambantota, which you are talking about, and also that is the port city of Colombo. The Hambantota, in fact, was started in 2002, where China has committed a loan of 1.1 billion, and as such, till now, Sri Lanka for the developmental project and including the gap of the current account deficit, it has to pay $66 billion. That is 12% of $66 billion is due to China, and 10% of it is due to Japan, and the other $44 billion is due to sovereign bonds taken from the different country. India has not given a single pie there for the development project. The development projects are being undertaken, Hambantota by the Chinese, and the other developmental project like railways, roads and all that, under the BRI initiative, that is the Belt Road Initiative initiated by the China. There it was spending lot of construction doing lot of construction activities and also supplying the manpower companies there in these cities where these BRI projects are coming up. So Hambantota in fact has come up under that situation where it has already spent 1.1 billion over the years. That is from 2010 to 2016. The China was getting a growth rate of 6.5%. Of course, it could compare with India somehow, but its per capita income is just double the per capita income of Indian, and it is at purchasing power parity. It is $12,000, where it is whereas it is in India, it is $6,000. So this was just half of it. Sri Lanka is a very normal economy, and the manpower in fact is engaged in most of them in agricultural activities or agricultural allied activities, or maximum in manufacturing activities at smaller level. Its export is minimum, but its import is higher because its consumption is higher, and the earning of the foreign exchange had to come from, that is the remittance, as well as from what you can say the tourism industry. The tourism and remittance almost contribute 70% of the foreign exchange earning, and 30% earning should be coming from what you have told, that is the transit ships which pass through the Colombo port, and that is the container services and all that. That is only the service sector which was the earning. Before COVID, it was just a good economy. It was functioning just without any demand of funds from anywhere. So when the COVID started, so it had to use that foreign exchange reserve for the import of essential commodities like medicine, food, and the other commodities which are used on daily basis, and the export continuing to remain low. So therefore, as the foreign exchange reserve continued to deplete, or its inflow has stopped due to the COVID, and that is the Easter Sunday, there was a suicide bombing where 250 people were killed. So since then, the tourists are scared of coming to Sri Lanka. So the tourist income has also fallen, and this COVID has also impacted the economy very badly. Now it has already defaulted the due payment of repayment of foreign exchange, that is the debt payment of $7 billion, and $26 billion was due in 2025. So therefore, it has surrendered already Sri Lanka that it won't able to pay this much of amount, and it has requested through the United Nations that 50% haircut on the principal should be given and 20% haircut should be given on the interest payment. I think it will have to be exceeded because it is already deep into the crisis. Otherwise, the survival will be difficult. So what the China has done, China, as it was eager to develop the developmental project and the repayment it was getting from the loan which is Sri Lankan government was taking. Now when the foreign exchange reserve has stopped coming in because of the several reasons, that the income has fallen down due to the low footfall of the tourism, and also that is what the remittance had also reduced of all the countries. Even India also had got reduced the remittance from coming from the Gulf country. So that way the foreign exchange reserve depleted, and that is it has defaulted on the repayment which was due for different countries. So China has stopped giving that this thing. So instead, China wanted that let it continue to sink further, let the turmoil continue, so that whatever the construction project it has constructed, that is the developmental project, it can get it converted into equity, and then the ownership will remain with the equity. So return will belong to the China that way. So that is the intention of the China. So therefore, the China has withdrawn the assistance from Sri Lanka in this crisis, in this hour of crisis. India could give the maximum of $2.4 billion. That is $1 billion is the credit line that it has given the medicines, rice, somewhat, and the diesel, so that is the power cut which has been happening should stop somehow. So 12 hours, 13 hours power cut is there. So diesel supply, because these are the thermal power project, not operated with the coal, because coal can operate only the big plants. They have got small plants because it is a tiny island. So diesel is being supplied from here. It is a one-time assistance. Ultimately, the Sri Lanka economy should decide that how they can come out of this trap of the debt, as well as the economy which is sagging due to non-payment of dues, as well as cut in income. That is the Rajapaksa government in 2019 have given tax cut to please the voters. So definitely it has won the election of 2019, but it has given a huge setback to Sri Lanka, and the crisis is such that that is the inflation is spiraling out of control, and 30% is straight away the inflation at the consumer price index has gone up by 30%. Some of the prices is skyrocketing. That is, the diesel prices are just double, and even eatables are very costly. People in fact are restive and they are protesting against the government. Of course, this is a political issue which has to be taken care of in long time. So how much India can assist in this hour of crisis, that is politically, whether the Sri Lankan government would like to take the advice from it, or it will have to be dictated by the IMF, because IMF has already accommodated them. that they will consider some emergency financial lending at the rate of 1.5%, because generally IMF loan is available only to the countries for the development project where the interest rate is significantly higher, 5 to 6%. But here the IMF has considered the request of Sri Lanka that it can be given some amount of loan so that the economy start moving with a slow pace and the recovery can start. This would be seen. But India, in fact, was having some FDI project, as you have pointed out, in real estate, hospitality. Airtel is also working there. Taj Hotel is also there. So 6 to 7 areas are there where India is doing FDI and getting the services of Sri Lanka to earn the equity. Like Airtel, when they will provide the services, they will get some income. So service based is there. We have not spent anything. Now India will suffer on account of the Colombo port, where is it? This is a transshipment port where thousands of ships pass through it and containers are emptied there, and there is a backlog there, and the things are becoming difficult to handle. So exporters will, the export price will continue to increase because the freight is stuck up there at the Colombo airport. The government is trying to build some hub, that is container hub in Kerala, but it is already too late. So for some time the exporter will have to pay heavy price for it, that the shipment will be delayed. At the same time, the order will also be delayed, and the loss in transition will belong to the exporter, and further export will not able to take place till the Colombo port is repaired and the servicemen come back to on the port to clear all these things, because the unrest is very high. And for the time being, since the neighbor first policy is there, the 2,000 Tamilians have already come from there. Sri Lanka has got roughly 12% population of Tamilian among the Sinhalese, and 12% out of 12%, these people are coming regularly through, that is Manwar and the Pak state which you are talking about. So they are put in Tamil Nadu, in remote area, in the refugees camp. They are insisting for Aadhaar card and all that, which can never be available, because under the UN refugees policy of 1956, that is they cannot be accommodated unless the government agrees that what it wants to do for the refugees. So as such, the Tamilian will not have any job, and ultimately they will have to go back when the situation return to the normal. India has, of course, supplied some humanitarian assistance like food, rice, and all that. It is one-time assistance. It cannot be given. So the role of India is limited, but the impact of Sri Lanka on Indian economy will be very, very huge. Export will remain restricted because this Hamban Tota, the government has already, government of Sri Lanka has pledged, that is the Hamban Tota to Chinese already, because the repayment was not done of the debt, and 70% in fact is adjusted there. 30% in fact what has remained, it has given 178 hectares of land in Colombo port city. So all this sphere of influence of China has increased very much. India has a very limited role there. So what we see is that the Indian economy will suffer drastically.
Okay, thank you very much.
I am cutting short, otherwise the matter was still.
I understand, Professor Arya. Whenever you always come on our show, you all have a long things to say, but you have made a very, very important point. What Professor Arya says is that our economy is, as far as quite tiny economy in front of the Chinese economy. Secondly, he says that because China is dealing, Sri Lanka is dealing with their income is mainly based on the service sector. That is, tourism is the main thing. The second is about the transshipments of the containers, etc. But he says the impact on India is going to be quite huge because two reasons. First thing he says about the container thing, our container depot in Kerala is not yet ready, and India has to depend on the Sri Lankan transshipment, and that's why the impact will be there. Then the refugee problem will be there. So all those things are going on. So according to Professor Arya, the impact will be more. And he also says that it's not a good idea that India should try to interfere because the China influence is already there in Sri Lanka. India cannot do anything drastically. And so according to him, India will suffer, but they have to just see how the others are going to play the role. Thank you very much, Professor Arya, for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Mr. G.V. Manimaran. Mr. G.V. Manimaran is the National General Secretary of Rashtriya Lok Janshakti Party. He is the Strategic Mentor Canara Bank Officers Association. He is the former director of Canara Bank. He is the ex-General Secretary, All India Banks Officers Federation. He is the ex-Senior Vice President, All India Banks Officers Confederation. He is the ex-president, Canara Bank Officers Cooperative Thrift and Credit Society Limited. And also, I would like to inform that he is the one of the senior most member of the delegation, a high-powered delegation, which visited Sri Lanka on 29th to 31st of March this year only. I was also one of the member in that delegation. And so he is having a fair amount of knowledge as far as the India and Sri Lanka relations are concerned, Sri Lankan crisis is concerned, and the Sri Lankan crisis impact on India is concerned. So I would like to know from you, Mr. G.V. Manimaran, you have already heard two panelists, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep as well as Professor Dr. R.K. Arya. They both have given the views, although a bit different views. Mr. Ramnath Pradeep says that India should immediately try to help out the Sri Lankan government so that the China should not come in the picture. But what Professor Dr. R.K. Arya says that India cannot do this because China is quite big and they have lots of investment there already. There are lots of loans. So India cannot beat China in that. So India has to be very, very careful. And he says that both have agreed that the impact will be huge. Now, you being so much closely associated with this crisis, I know personally that how you have met with the ministers there, the governor there, and everyone is, and still you are in talking with them. We would like to know your views on will Sri Lanka crisis affect India? Mr. G.V. Manimaran, please.
Thank you very much, Goel Saab and all other esteemed panelists. And I had time constraint also, so Goel Saab often reminding me. So I would like to complete my presentation within 10 minutes as he's told that. And I want to divide my presentation into 4 parts. So this nature of crisis, plus how it is going to affect India. Third one is what are the opportunities available for India to do that. Fourth part is what India can extend assistance to Sri Lanka to come out of this present crisis. As Mr. Goelji was telling initially, that Sri Lanka is very ideally located geographically and possesses all rich natural resources. One thing we must understand here is the economic crisis which Sri Lanka is facing today is not primarily due to any famine or flood or external aggression, which cannot be corrected or it will take time. The natural resources like land, water, and minerals in Sri Lanka is very much intact. In fact, till last year, Colombo was high in happy index, better in hunger index, and the GDP was rather better than our country. The present unrest and domestic insurgency is also after a long wait patiently, and it appears to be politically motivated, which talks well about the quality of the people in Sri Lanka who can wait till the country is turning around. Till very recently, the country had been suffering from the LTTE factor, and to counter them, replacement and displacement of people were practiced by Sri Lanka. In the process, there was no concrete and long-term strategic plan for utilizing the rich natural resources and impart skill on the youth so as to attain the self-sufficiency, but it could not possible. The country was about to open up the economy, to become global market, but the country like China made use of it. In fact, it should have been used by the India. How it is going to affect us? I will come to the straight away the impact it will have on the India's economy also. The rice and vegetables are being exported from Andhra and Tamil Nadu. A huge amount of onions from Maharashtra, which would be seriously affected. The export income what India has been earning, that is going to be affected. And the natural and easy choice of refugees from Sri Lanka is India and Tamil Nadu. And whatever reasons behind it, Tamil Nadu has to welcome the Tamil refugees from Sri Lanka, and we have to accommodate due to emotional connection, which definitely would have a social and financial impact in Tamil Nadu. We should be a concern for India too. The refugees problem is going to be there, which we are left with no option than accommodating them. Then, and another point which other panelists did not touch is some of the foreign extremist presence was observed in Sri Lanka in the recent days. And we strongly believe even today something is happening there. And being very close to Sri Lanka, this may also create a problems in India. And Sri Lanka is a very big security threat for India in Indian Ocean, which otherwise a safe zone for India so far. So, what are all the opportunities available for India? Of course, I am also appreciating the point made by one of the panelists that he is comparing with China, and China is a big economy and all these things. I also don't have any other observation on that, but still, to bail out Sri Lanka, India don't need an economy like China. And our resources and expertise and our closeness, culturally and emotionally, is very much sufficient to bring them out of the current crisis. So it is a big opportunity for us. Let us not unnecessarily compare with China. And India is emotionally linked with Sri Lanka, as a big population was originated from India. And Sri Lanka being a Buddhist country, it is very well spiritually also connected to India, which we cannot forget. And Sri Lanka also has got lots of temples connected to Ramayana, an important epic for Indians. So I am repeating my statement that we are emotionally, culturally very well linked with Sri Lanka. Another thing is, as it was observed that 12% of the population are Indian origin, more precisely it is a Tamil origin. See, unlike China, who came into Ceylon for doing a business, this Tamil origin of 12%, which we cannot ignore, they are part of Sri Lanka as a bureaucrats, as a voters, and as a politicians too. They are part of Sri Lankan government and politics, which we cannot forget it, and they are all Indian origins. So now what we must do that, it is very much important to discuss in today's parlance. See, India must help, as some of the panelists pointed out, help the political stability to establish a democratic government at the earliest. We must do that. That is very much important before getting into various other assistance extended by India to be really helpful to bail out the Sri Lanka from the current crisis. The Tamilians and the Tamil origins in Sri Lanka must be treated as Indian origin. This point I am very well concerned about it, because the people in Sri Lanka, though they are Tamil origin or some of them from Kerala, these people should not be treated as a Tamil origin. They should be treated as an Indian origin. So then only the real crisis happening there can be well understood, and what is the kind of assistance we should extend so that the Tamil origin there considers the Indian origin to strengthen themselves to be part of Sri Lankan politics or bureaucracy, so as to bring the Sri Lanka out of this current crisis. And India can definitely extend military assistance to guard the coastal area of Sri Lanka to prevent the infiltration of foreign extremists. This has to be done immediately, because the Hambantota port, though this commercially it was to be exploited by the Chinese, there was an apprehension expressed formally or informally. It is a way for the foreign countries can enter into India, and it will have a big challenge to the Indian security threat also. So necessarily, now we have to extend good military assistance to Sri Lanka to guard the entire coastal area, which will be a good protector to the India too. And Indian industries, they may be advised to invest in such activities like using rich minerals which is available there. And value addition of the minerals available in Sri Lanka, Indian industries to go and install their industries to do this activity, so that it will bring more export earnings to Sri Lanka, so that this financial crisis will be definitely out. And Sri Lanka is a good place for adventurous, educational, and medical tourism. Very importantly located there. And India with a big population, they can resort to Sri Lanka, where this tourism can be well exploited. And India can invest in tourism, medical, and education, which also would bring foreign money to Sri Lanka. Besides, the enhancing the education and the skill level of Sri Lankan youth, which is very much required for Sri Lanka today. Because of the continuous struggle they were facing with war and other things with the LTT and all. The important thing what was not done was giving skill training to the Sri Lankan youth, who are to be used as a factor to bring up their economy. And that is not possible. So now India has to install some kind of hospitals or the educational institutions and tourism establishment, so that the Sri Lankan youth can be very well developed, skill development will be there, so that they can take care of their own economy. And another important thing is a huge stretch of potential land is there, and with rich agriculture can be taken place. The investment in agriculture and animal husbandry activities will improve the rural economy particularly, and also satisfy the domestic consumption needs, because some of the domestic consumption they are importing, their things can be improved. And it will also reduce the Sri Lanka to reduce the import cost. And Indians can be encouraged to set up small scale cottage industries. And such products shall be imported duty free to India back. See, Indian industries can go and set up their industry, and the final products can be brought back to India as a duty-free products, so that at the same price, same manufacturing price, it can be marketed in India too. This way also we can help the Sri Lanka. And India can plan for promoting cooperative movement in Sri Lanka, so as to step and consolidate the potentials of Sri Lankans' rural population, and by assisting them to start cooperative financial institutions too. The cooperative movement supported by the cooperative financial institution, so that a small scale kind of financial extension, finance can be extended to the rural population to do their agriculture and animal husbandry activities. And also, India may explore the possibilities of opening Indian financial institution like banking and housing finance companies, so as to help the local Sri Lankan and the Indian industries to set up industry. Because see, any industries want to set up an industry in Sri Lanka, they now have to look at the foreign banks for their assistance. Suppose Indian banks are having their presence in a big way in Sri Lanka, for the Indian industries who want to set up industries, we can extend the help, so that the Sri Lankan economy will be definitely pick up. And people were worrying about the Hambantota port. We did not worry much about the Hambantota port, because it was in the eastern part of Sri Lanka. There is untapped potential available in the north and the northeast part of Sri Lanka, which is very closely located to India. And this was the part dominated earlier by these Tamil forces, LTT forces, and which was not developed in a big way. Now it is freed from all these kind of clutches, and it is ready for the development. It is untapped potential available there. There is a natural port, one of the best, world best natural port is available economically. Suppose India is able to develop that port, and it is going to give the reply to the people who are expressing their concern on the Colombo port, where 60% of the transshipment takes place, and it will increase the container cost and all these things. So developing the north and the northeastern part, where Tamils are more, Indian origins are more, which will be very well helpful to India. And we should not allow anybody to go and settle any foreign forces, because it's very close to India. It will be another security threat. So let us not worry about the Hambantota seaport, because the airport is available with us. It is for our India only. And the north and northeastern part, if it is developed as a important hub, perhaps it will be a good answer to this Hambantota port issue. And all our merchandise can be if you are setting up an industry in Sri Lanka, our merchandise which is being developed and packed there can be exported to some of the countries which is otherwise is otherwise under negative list countries of India, so that the export income can be brought back to Sri Lanka. And this is the way that we can definitely improve the Sri Lankan economy. And my personal view is, we need not worry much about the Chinese presence, because the people in Sri Lanka have understood, which was projected to them for the long 5 years or 10 years, that China is going to help them. It is proved wrong. Their economy has failed. Now this India is only can help Sri Lanka. And I'm sure that Sri Lankan people also started having faith in India, because India only can bail them out from the current crisis. So it is a right opportunity for us to get into Sri Lanka and help. And if you are encouraging the Indian industrialists to go and invest, and it is going to bring fortunes for them also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. G.V. Manimaran, for giving your views. And as I told initially also, that you are so much closely associated, Mr. Manimaran is so much closely associated with the Sri Lanka internal positions, where what is happening there, is observing, so he knows what is happening there. But according to him, it's a politically motivated thing. All the resources, natural resources, everything is intact there. It's a good opportunity for India. India should not have any reservation about the Hapanchota or the Chinese thing, because India is having lots of field to do in the north side, that is where they can develop the many things, including the port. And he also says that India should give the military assistance to them to finish the insurgency which is taking place. Otherwise, it is going to harm the India also. So, effect, according to him, is going to be there if India is not going to be proactive. And he says that the industrialists should come forward. There's a lots of opportunity and scope, which we know that because I was also present personally with Mr. Manimaran when we had discussions there, how much they are cooperating. Their board of investments are ready to give full cooperation. But unfortunately, because after we came, that these things have happened, the curfew, etc., etc. But I'm sure now with the new government of India and the industrialists of India and the investors will definitely like to support the Sri Lanka, and in turn will get beneficial for our own country, that's India. Thank you very much, Mr. Manimaran. Although I know that you can speak more and I can also speak, but the time is limited. We have to hear others also. Thank you very much. I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Wing Commander U. Satyan, retired Indian Air Force. Mr. Wing Commander U. Satyan was commissioned on 10th December 1997 into the Aeronautical Engineering Mechanical Stream of the IAF. He has 20 years experience working at various levels and portfolios in the engineering field, ranging wide from the surface to air missiles to maintaining aircraft like the Chetaks, Cheetahs, and advanced light helicopters, ALH Akadru. He has on-ground working experience in the engineering arena at multiple IAF aviation bases and a base repair depot. He functioned as the senior engineering officer at multiple units, including an aviation unit. He has worked at Air Headquarters, the central decision-making body of the IAF, as a joint director, and was involved in framing and incorporating policies and decisions for maintenance of aircraft, specifically the ALH variant, ALH Dhruv, Mk1, Mk2, and weaponized ALH Mk4 Rudra manufactured by HAL. He was also involved in the phase-wise discussion of the latest Apache that IAF has recently acquired and the light combat helicopter being designed and developed by HAL. Welcome, Wing Commander U. Satyan, on our show. Wing Commander, you have heard our earlier panelists, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, Professor Dr. Arya, as well as Mr. Manimaran, and all have given their views. But one thing was common in them is about the security. The thing that if India is not going to support, or India will not interfere at this or intervene at this time, that the effect will be about the security, because the China has already taken over one port. They may take the control, and then it will be an open border, especially with in the seas, where India will have to be again deploy their forces, which earlier was the safe border. Being in the defense services, and you have observed and you are doing so much work now, and being in the that side only, the southern side, Kerala side, which is very close to the Sri Lanka. We would like to know your views on will Sri Lanka crisis affect India? Wing Commander U. Satyan, please.
Thank you, Golji. First of all, very good morning, and thank you for inviting me onto this show with such an august gathering. Now, having heard the other experts speaking mainly about economics and the cultural perspective, I would like to hint and I would like to point a little bit on the defense perspective, which probably India is more worried on the international scale. And economics will always follow any country since every country is now interconnected. An economic crisis or a military crisis in any of the nation is going to affect every other nation, and more so to the neighboring nations, because they are all codependent on each other for exports and imports. Now, first of all, Sri Lanka has always been historically and culturally linked with India, much like Nepal, Bhutan, even Bangladesh and Pakistan for that matter. Unfortunately, Pakistan is one of the hostile nations which we are dealing with. Sri Lanka has always been friendly with India. Now, the problem is, China has been involved in Sri Lanka militarily from 1950 onwards.
Sorry, I think some ring is ringing somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
okay.
Please go ahead.
So, Chinese interference in the military affairs of Sri Lanka had started somewhere in the 1950s, according to the reports what we had received. But India, if you see, India has been linked with China right from the time of Chola, Chera and Pandya kingdoms, wherein Sri Lanka, a major part of Sri Lanka used to be part of these kingdoms. So that is how, India has been linked with Sri Lanka, and with that, the transfer of population of Tamilians to Sri Lanka for various purposes has been done. So in the present situation, if you see, we have to understand China first before we understand where Sri Lanka is standing. Now, in the Chinese perspective or the Chinese cases, in whichever country it goes, it starts off with a loan, and within a short period of time, you will see the country becomes in debt towards China. So that has been the same story in all the other nations, be it even Pakistan as well. Pakistan, they are going, gaga about the CPEC, but in fact, if you look into it, it is in debt. So similar case is for Sri Lanka. They go in, China is like the money lender shark. Countries go to it for easy loan. Once they take it, they find that the repayment is a big an issue, and then China comes out with a solution that the countries, a portion of the country's land to be given to China for operation, for peaceful purposes, they say. But with China around, you can never understand and you can never accept that China will always be for peaceful purposes. China is not doing charity, first of all. When it tries to invest in a country, it is looking for its own gains. Similar is the case with Sri Lanka. If anybody is not able to understand this, I think that person is not living in this world. So first of all, we need to understand that China, even in Sri Lanka, when it says that we are not interested in the country's internal politics, like Sri Lanka had come to India first for Hambantota port. India had evaluated it and said that it will be a dead investment. It will not give you any returns. Instead of understanding, Sri Lanka went to China. China doesn't ask questions. If you say you want to build a port, it says we can build a port. This is the amount which we'll take, and we'll take that amount and build your port or any other infrastructure. If the country says that we don't have the money to go along with, China says we'll give you a loan. If the country says that we don't have the expertise, China says we'll give you the expertise. So in fact, the money which China is lending has not even changed hands. It gives the money through one hand and takes it back into the other, does the port, builds the infrastructure, hands it over to that country, and finally the country says that it is stuck with the infrastructure with which it is not able to do anything. It is not left with any money, and now it is in debt to this nation called China. India has been politically constrained for giving defense support. It has been politically constrained for selling offensive weapons, but it has facilitated arms deals and provided critical information and support for Sri Lanka to eliminate the LTTE. But here, in fact, at that time, India had not understood the LTTE issue. It was probably treating it as a standard terrorism issue. But if you look deeper into the LTTE issue, it had stemmed from the fact that Tamilians were not being treated on par with the Sinhalese majority. Hence the anger, hence the repercussion of the LTTE. Instead, India would have tried to be a link between the LTTE, trying to resolve the issue peacefully. Things could have been a little different. But having said that, where do we currently stand in the defense perspective? China has already existed or established its presence in the Sri Lanka. In fact, it had the thought of encircling India with the countries or the nations around the Indian peninsula or the Indian subcontinent. As far as the port is concerned, India has already planned, its work is already underway. We are shifting the exports hub from probably Colombo in anytime soon to the Vizhinjam port in Kerala. So as far as the export-import are concerned, export-import hub is concerned, or transshipment hub is concerned, India will be good to go once this port is established. Now, the second fact is that India treats defense forces as a necessary requirement for existing economically and progressing as an economic force. But if you see China, it sees military as a way to, expand its influence base. It has been doing country after country, and Sri Lanka is no exception. So here, if I'm not wrong, I will agree with Manimaranji that this particular aspect of what happened in Sri Lanka were more or less politically motivated. Coupled with that was the inflation, and along with that was the COVID, because of which Sri Lanka had hit rock bottom in terms of the current situation, which is in Sri Lanka. So now, what should India do? India should surely interfere. Interfere in what sense? Not in defense, but India should help Sri Lanka to get up on its feet in terms of economical support. India's investment is already there. It is the third largest in terms of FDI in Sri Lanka. It should increase its base because it is important for India to have Sri Lanka on this part of the subcontinent rather than with China. China has only one way to go. It will first capture a nation economically and then try to dictate its rules to it. India should not follow that path. We already have majority of our big business houses doing operations there. We should try to invest more, and we should try to get Sri Lanka back on its feet so that once Sri Lanka does this or comes out of its crisis, once it starts progressing, after that, what will happen is Indian and Sri Lankan relations will deepen. We have seen it in Nepal, where we had handled the situation in the similar fashion. We didn't get excited. We didn't get aggravated when China was starting to dictate terms with Nepal. Soon the governance changed, and now again we are in friendly terms with Nepal. I think we should follow the same approach with Sri Lanka. We should support it economically. We should help it build up its own markets, and what will follow will be the friendship ties.
Okay, thank you very much, Wing Commander, for giving your views and the paucity of time. So I would not like to summarize now. He has already clarified everything, and when the next round, I will definitely ask some question to you. Now, I would like to invite my last but not the least panelist guest, and he is Mr. Arun Lakshman. Mr. Arun Lakshman is the Director of Center for Policy and Development Studies, a think tank based out of Chennai and Thiruvananthapuram, focusing on social, economic, political, and strategic studies. He was officer on special duty to Minister of State for Law and Justice in Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government. He is a freelance journalist and was former Kerala resident editor of the Pioneer. He worked with the New Indian Express as well as with Sea Voters opinion poll agency Rediff.com. Welcome, Mr. Arun Lakshman on our show. Mr. Arun Lakshman, you have heard all our earlier panelists, and being a journalist as well as you have worked with the government very closely, you know inside out of the government, and as a strategic person, we would like to know now your views on the will Sri Lanka crisis affect India? Mr. Arun Lakshman, please. Please unmute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Lalgoel and all the fellow panelists. It was once more back to friendly territory speaking and attending Mr. Lalgoel's program. I would like to say, as all our panelists have said earlier, that the crisis will definitely affect India because we are the closest nation to the Sri Lankans. And I do agree with Mr. Manimaran's statement that more than the Chinese, for China, maybe Sri Lanka is a business hub or for investment sake. But for us, it's a cultural, socially, and spiritually bound nation. So we do have a lot at stake in Sri Lanka, and we can play that cards beautifully well. Because even if spiritualism is concerned, it's Buddhism, or rather if Tamil nationalism or Tamil people is concerned, there are a lot of temples in Sri Lanka. And as far as that part is concerned, we have a code or connectivity, much better connectivity in the island nation than this Chinese is concerned. But strategically, we'll have to say that this Hambantota port is almost with the Chinese. And if I'm not wrong, the Tamil Nadu Assembly Speaker had once mentioned, because his constituency is in Kodunkulam nuclear power plant, it comes under his constituency, and he has once allayed the fear. He has once brought out some concern that this Kodunkulam nuclear power project is a big security thing, as Hambantota port is now almost with the Chinese. So that is a very important thing. If Sri Lanka goes to chaos, it means that China will be militarily occupying the territory rather than that. So India can intervene. India has to intervene politically, and I suppose that there are a lot of moves on part of our country regarding the intervention into the Sri Lankan economy, Sri Lankan politics. And the transshipment hub, the Sri Lankan, we are depending on the transshipment, as earlier speakers have said. The Hambantota port or the Colombo port, it is very important strategically as a transshipment base for our country. And as Wing Commander Satyan said, we'll be shifting it soon to the Vizhinjam port once it becomes functional. But for the time being, as the shipments are being blocked, we will be economically affected by this lack of movement of the containers. Container movement is affecting us. And another thing, there is a positive side on this as far as Indian business is concerned. Two areas, textiles and tea. Sri Lanka was the #1 tea exporter to the major countries, including the Iraq, Turkey, likewise. And India is slowly entering that market because in Sri Lanka, 12 to 14 hours power cut, a lot of things are happening. So that's one economic balancing is happening in that part, the tea exporters. And secondly, the textile export. Textile export, Sri Lanka has been a major hub of textiles, textile exporting to the US, to the UK, and in the even Latin American market, wherein we had a negligible presence. So that is one balancing point. It's only balancing, maybe the scales are still not on our side. And strategically, one more thing I have to mention here. On October 21st, 2021, India, the security forces of Tamil Nadu had arrested Satkunam. I suppose his name is Satkunam. He was a former intelligence operative of the LTTE, very senior intelligence operative of the LTTE, and I think he's now inside the jail. So the one important point, as far as we were focusing on, is that there are possibility of some elements entering into India under the guise of the refugees, and that's happening in Tamil Nadu has to be very closely monitored and viewed. I think the intelligence agencies of our country is clearly monitoring on that part. And that is a very strategically and politically very important for our country, because down south in Tamil Nadu, there is apprehension among the agencies on what is happening in that angle. And as far as refugees are concerned, there is a political decision that we will accept them wholeheartedly. And now, I think since the crisis have evolved in Sri Lanka, maybe 110, 115 refugees have come through illegal ferries. And only the first batch, 4 or 5 people were arrested. And after 1 day of jail, they were all released. And they are all in Mandambam camp. And unfortunately, a 78-year-old woman who tried to, who was dropped in the neck deep sea to walk into the Indian shores. She passed away in a hospital. But other than that, everybody is safe and well attended to in the Mandavaram camp at Rameshwar. So that politically, that part we are doing. That can be extended to a macro level, so that there is a belief among the people of Sri Lanka that we are there as a neighbor, as spiritually, culturally, socially connected country. We are more of used to that, the Sri Lankan people. As our external affairs minister, while he was in Trivandrum for a 3-day visit, he had categorically told media that rather than politics, we'll be having interaction, people-to-people interaction. So the people-to-people interaction will be much more beneficial in the long run as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. And Mr. Manivaran has rightly pointed that point out, that part, because this religious, social, and cultural bonding is much more important, or much more acceptable rather than the business thing for Chinese. That's our plus point vis-a-vis China. Not the economically they will be a big power, but in the soft power we are a major force in Sri Lanka. That I think we'll have to capitalize upon. And the security, as all the other panelists have spoken about, we have a larger coastal area associated with Sri Lanka, and we have to manage that coastal line with all our powers. Thank you. That's that much, because I think everybody has spoken.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Arun Lakshman, for giving your views. And definitely, again, the same problem for me, paucity of time. So I will directly go for the question. My first question goes to Mr. Ramnath Pradeep. Are you there, Mr. Pradeep? Please switch on your video. Please switch on your video. Yes. Mr. Pradeep, do you think, as you said, that India should intervene immediately, do you think Indian intervention will be direct conflict with the China, which our country is not interested to, unnecessary to fight with a country? So don't you think that, as you say, that it should intervene, that we should avoid intervention in such a way that there should not be a direct conflict? What do you say about this, Mr. President?
I'm of the view that a politically sensitive issue, and the politically sensitive issue has to be dealt appropriately. Today, the situation is that what is immediately needed is to establish the perfect government there, which if we are able to politically help to establish a proper government in the country, that will go a long way. The first thing is so that the politically it is a stabilized country. Otherwise, if the politically it is not stabilized, then this problem will continue to be there. So the first priority is India should intervene to get it stabilize the political issue first.
Oh.
And very nearer, I think that should not be a very big issue politically. And thereafter, other thing can follow. The commerce, there is already agreement between the two countries which can follow. Rest of the things can be followed. But today, once the politically it is stabilized, it means he will be in a position to address those issues politically. And politically, rest of the things can be helped very, very nice.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep. Now, my question goes to Professor Dr. Arya. Professor Arya, do you think Indian intervention is already delayed? They should have intervened earlier. It's a delayed thing. And that's why this problem, like Mr. Pradeep said, that India should intervene for stabilizing the government there. But already it's delayed. So much insurgency and so much protest is going on. What is your view about this, Professor Arya?
See, I will not be giving a pointed reply, of course. I will sum up in half a minute that this political intervention at this stage is not possible, because the civil war has ended only in 2009. and subsequently the government was on its way to stabilize the country, and it was very much stabilized. And the cumulative solution is, first of all, let us see what IMF has to say, because the bailout has to be done by the IMF. A very pertinent point: economic cooperation can be better worked out by the Stalin government, who has intellectual in his cabinet. Whether the government at the center would like to have AIDMK on the board is a big issue which has to be decided first, so that the cooperation can be stepped up.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Arya. I don't know whether which government would like to do, but it is a country's thing first. We have to see the country first, not the DMK or AIDMK and the BJP. Anyway, but you have made a very good point. Now, my question goes to Mr. Manimaran. Mr. Manimaran, we have seen, I was also present, you were also there when we have met the officers, the ministers and the governors. But the condition has deteriorated from that time till now. Do you think, and you are saying that the investor should invest and industries should go there, do you think investment at this time is safe now, or the industries should wait till the politically stability is there in the Sri Lanka?
Before responding to your point, I would like to make one more point to be noted here. First of all, India, for some reason, might have thought that it's economically viable decision, so they might not have entered into Sri Lankan soil for extending financial assistance. That part was well used by the China. There is one part. It was one thing. Then another thing is UNHRCs. UNHRC's sanctions were there. That is the reason that IMF and World Bank, they did not extend any kind of assistance. And we must know one more thing is the UNHRC sanctions were more related to Rajapaksa. And now with the Rajapaksa out, one part. And the Rajapaksa, they were inviting also China very well. Now the situation is changed. Rajapaksa is out. UNHRC is trying to relax the conditions. So IMF now come in the way. IMF will be extending the finance. And India also openly made that the military assistance and some of the other finance assistance they have made. And now we will go to China. China earlier might have thought that nobody will be coming into Sri Lanka to help them, so we can easily swallow the Sri Lanka, which is not going to happen now, because UNHRC is going to relax the conditions, IMF is going to extend the finance, and it clearly indicates as Western side also started extending finance to Sri Lanka, and India is also has expressed very categorically, and our finance, our external affairs minister was camping there for 4 or 5 days there, and many industries in India and particularly Tamil Nadu wanted to invest there. And the recent crisis, Tamil Nadu government independently extended some financial assistance and some goods were sent there. So China might have understood the very idea of these Sri Lankan people now. Because Sri Lankan people now, in my opinion, they lost confidence, faith in themselves. So it is a right time. India must extend some more financial assistance, and they allowed to go and ensure that the political stability is ensured. And even today, it will be the best place for Indian investors to go and start the businesses.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Manimaran. So according to him, it's a right time to invest there. Now, let's hope that the new government will be formed soon, so that the industry, the investor will know how to be dealt with them. Thank you very much. Now my question goes to the Wing Commander, Mr. Satyan. Wing Commander, do you think, because right now in Hampantota, the planning of China was to make it a nuclear submarine hub. If they will make that nuclear submarine hub there, do you think it is advisable to have open a front with the China in the seas? And as one of the panelists says, that's our nuclear plant in Tamil Nadu is very much close to that. So do you think we are ready for that, or we should avoid the type of direct conflict with the China?
Goelji, India always treats a military confrontation as the last measure or the last resort. We try to resolve issues diplomatically, and only if the diplomatic routes are all closed. And then too, India doesn't attack first. We have never had the concept of an offensive defense. The defense forces have been existing for our own safety and not for a direct confrontation in the first go. If we are attacked, definitely we'll reply in so many words. But at the current situation, even if China is trying to develop a port, it is in a foreign nation. We cannot react with a direct confrontation. We have to sensitize the government there. Initially, earlier with the Rajapaksa government, it was difficult, near impossible to make them understand the consequences of the Chinese presence. They didn't listen. The earlier governments used to listen to us, and that's why the Chinese presence were limited in Sri Lanka. With Rajapaksa coming into the picture, they went full bore on the eliminating. In fact, I'll say the Tamilian presence itself from the island nation. So that was viewed seriously by the UN Human Rights Commission and the sanctions imposed thereof. But with the Rajapaksa government gone, the roads are now open for a more fruitful cooperation with the Sri Lankan government. The government of Sri Lanka and the people have also realized that the Chinese presence were never in the interest of the Sri Lankan people. In fact, if you go into any other country also, it will be the same way.
Okay.
So likewise, the direct confrontation is not a route. The economic assistance followed by a civilian cooperation. This will be the route.
Okay, thank you very much. Now my question goes to Mr. Arun Lakshman. Do you think Indian foreign policy failed some, and that's why this thing is happening? If, like our panelist says, that they should have, they have not listened. The Sri Lankan government, this present the earlier Sri Lankan government, Rajapaksa has not listened to the Indian government. Do you think our foreign policy failed somewhere? That's why this crisis have happened. Otherwise, if they would have convinced that not to allow the China to come and make a port or something like that, what do you say about this, Mr. Arun Lakshman? Please unmute.
I don't think that our policy has failed as such. Maybe we would have been watching on the pros and cons situation, and our foreign minister clearly stated that we will be intervening at the right time, and that also we are doing the
Mr. Arun Lakshman, I'm just intervening right now is fine because the crisis is already there. My point is why the crisis have come, why the government has not intervened earlier with the diplomacy so that China, this crisis would have not come out there.
No, China has already intervened in Nepal and Pakistan, and likewise they have intervened in Sri Lanka. It was for the Sri Lankan government. The Rajapaksa government went all out and out to move the Chinese, and maybe less like Mr. Satyan has said, they would try to finish out the Tamilian presence in Sri Lanka. That was the key point, rather than we not intervene. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So, viewers, we have seen today that what our experts have mentioned very, very clearly, that it is not the Indian government fault. It is not our foreign policies thing. Rather, all viewers all our experts are of the view that we must intervene. The government of India should intervene. It's the right time. And they says that nothing is lost in Sri Lanka. It is only a politically motivated crisis which can be sorted out easily, which I am sure the government of India is doing on a day-to-day basis. And once the new government will come, definitely the Sri Lanka is the right place and lots of opportunities for the investors, the industrialists to invest there. And it is in the interest of the country, the Indian government, Indian country, to see to it that the peace is restored in Sri Lanka as early as possible. That is only possible when the new government will come, and our experts feels that the Indian government should see to it that the political stability should be there in Sri Lanka, so that tomorrow India will have more advantages. Although they all agree that there is an effect of this crisis which will be there, but they all are hopeful that once the stability will be there, the new government will come, definitely this crisis, this effect will not be there. Rather, it will become a positive effect, because the Sri Lankan people have understood one thing, that the Chinese are not there to help them, but they are there to loot them. And once the Sri Lankan people now understood very clearly, the government has understood very clearly, and the earlier government has been thrown away, the day is not far when India and Sri Lanka will have the same type of friendship what we were having earlier. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Karu News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan, as well as twice shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And in our endeavor to bring to you every day new topic in our media conference with Lal Goyal at 10:30 a.m. Tomorrow our topic is life after marriage. Yes, you heard clearly, life after marriage. And our panelists are, and I can see our panelists are, our experts are smiling. I know that everyone knows about the life after marriage, but the panelists are tomorrow is Miss Joyce Rigo, Mrs. India Dubai 2017, Managing Director, Mustard Collection UAE, Miss Brinda Shine, Director, Syneps Consolidated Kolam, Miss Rohini Goyal, Director, Ramanlal Shora Wala Primary School, Mathura, and Miss Shriti Prasad, Educator, Paloti School and Junior College, Nagpur. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goyal at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Acharya. Thank you very much, Mr. Manimaran. Thank you very much, Wing Commander Satyan. And thank you very much, Mr. Arun Lakshman, for enlightening our viewers today about the Sri Lankan crisis, because generally on the media, they're all the distorted type of facts were given. There is a tutu meme. Our aim is to give the real expert opinions to the viewers so that they will understand, they will know what is the actually happening, and they can frame their own views. So thank you very much, and thank you all the viewers.